Hello guys, it's Modest here, and today I just wanted to go over something I've been thinking about in regards to Melee. I might do a couple more of these if if it gets any good feedback or whatever, if I think of other things, which could be unlikely because I don't always think of new things when it comes to Melee. I'm not the best at it. But something that's been running through my mind is like I've been kind of for a while struggling with like the balance between playing aggressive and playing defensive, and I think it's something a lot of players struggle with. You know, some players go in too hard, some players don't go in hard enough, and they don't know when to like find their openings. And for me, I've been kind of flitting between the two of like trying to pressure a lot, but trying to be defensive a lot. And recently, I kind of had an analogy in my head that has been helping the way I kind of approach whether I decide to play defensive and when I decide to play defensive. And the analogy I'd like to compare it to is playing poker. And I understand not everyone will be familiar with poker, but most people are probably familiar with the terms of like bluffing and going all in and gambling within the context of poker. And I feel like what's something that a lot of players are very prone to doing is, especially players who like work on their execution very hard, and they have incredibly good execution, let's say, is there's this desire to kind of come out of the gates swinging and show everything that you've got. Because you've been putting all this work, and you kind of see it in players at tournaments where like, the start siren goes and they're ready to start swinging home runs. They kind of want to put themselves or put the enemy player in the most like, discomforting scenarios possible. And I think what can happen is that you kind of end up showing your cards too often or too early. And the analogy I'd like to use is if you got a really good hand in poker, and every time you got a good hand, you just kept showing it off. You kept like going all in, making it really obvious that you had the good hand. And I think it's something that's prone to happening to me, I have found. This may not apply to a lot of you guys, it may apply to you, but I found that I'll have that good execution. I'll look at the enemy player and I'll think, yeah, I definitely 1,000,000% have the better execution than this player. I want to show it off. I want to put them under the pressure. I want to put them under the duress. But what can happen is it kind of becomes less effective because they know what's coming. They know that when there's these situations where there's a choice between whether you could rush them down or not rush them down, you're probably going to pick that more strong option. You're probably going to lean to the option where you just show off more tech skill, where you just absolutely spam buttons on your controller, where you just go absolutely mental. On one end, it makes your approaches a little bit more one note because, or it makes your timings a little bit more one note because you're constantly attacking on the first available frame. You're constantly, putting the pressure on yourself to execute everything. And all they have to really do is consistently bat you away and swat you away. And you're actually giving an easier time to the enemy player because they know that your first instinct is going to be to want to, defeat them, to want to crush them through, aggressive play or, straightforward play. And I was just kind of thinking, like, a lot of the time, the answer in Melee, and it's quite depressing to really think about this, is to do nothing. Or to do less. Less is more in a lot of situations. And it's not necessarily about playing completely defensive. It's just about not necessarily going out of your way to throw out an aerial in every situation, or not necessarily going out of your way to use platforms in an aggressive way, using platforms in a sort of movement-orientated approach, and just letting the opponent kind of have to figure you out. They're going to have to, eventually you will approach. I'm definitely not saying you don't. But it's more of taking a reactive approach, especially in the early game, when it's like early on in a set. If you come out of the gates just constantly wanting to show everything that you've got and constantly wanting to prove that you're, one of the greatest species to ever do it, let's say, it just kind of can make you a little bit more predictable, I feel. So yeah, I hope that was of somewhat use to people, and maybe just stop showing that you have 2 aces up your sleeves, and start pretending that you might only have a 2 and a 7 offsuit, but secretly, when you start warming up, that's when the good shit starts coming out, and they just ain't ready for it. But yeah, anyway, I've been Modest Rager. Hopefully that was helpful. Peace out.